I never thought a garage door could haunt me. But there it was, still locked, still untouched, just like he left it. Marcus had always been clear. I wasn't to go in there. Ever. He'd say, "It's just my tools, Ellie. Messy stuff. You wouldn't care for it." And I didn't question it. Why would I? He was my husband. My best friend. We were married for 15 years. 15 years of birthdays, anniversaries, shared coffee every morning. Or at least, that's what I thought we shared. But when Marcus died, suddenly, out of nowhere, that garage became something else. A symbol. A weight pressing on my chest every time I walked past it. For weeks, I couldn't bring myself to touch it. I told myself I was grieving, that it wasn't the time. But deep down, I think I was scared. Scared of what I might find behind it. It wasn't until the house started feeling too quiet, too heavy, that I decided to open it. That morning, I stood in front of the old metal door, holding the single silver key he always kept on his keychain. My hands were shaking. The lock clicked open easier than I expected. And when I pulled the door up, I felt the breath leave my body. It wasn't a workshop. There were no tools. No cluttered mess like he'd described. Instead, it looked like a second life had been packed neatly into this space. There were shelves of photo albums, labeled boxes, framed pictures leaning against the wall. A few of Marcus's old jackets hung on hooks, and in the center, a large oak desk with files stacked in perfect rows. I stepped inside, slowly, as if any noise might break the fragile truth hanging in the air. The first thing I picked up was a photo. Marcus was in it, smiling, but not at me. He had his arm around a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger, dark hair, pretty in a quiet kind of way. And standing in front of them was a boy. He looked about 12. Brown hair. Same nose as Marcus. I dropped the photo. I felt cold all over. My brain tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was an old family friend, a cousin, something innocent. But the next photo was worse. It was Marcus holding the boy, cradling him like a newborn, a hospital bracelet still on his wrist. The label on the back read, Noah, Day 1. My knees buckled. I sat down right there on the concrete floor. There were dozens of albums, all neatly labeled by year, all filled with photos of this child. Birthday cakes, Christmas trees, school plays. And Marcus was in every one of them, smiling, laughing, fathering. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't a stranger's child. This was his child. And I had never known. 15 years of marriage, and he had a son. I felt something crack in me. Not anger, not yet. Just hollow confusion. What else didn't I know? I opened one of the boxes on the desk. Inside were envelopes. Thick ones, labeled with dates and locations. Receipts for hotels, rent payments, wire transfers. The name Isla Monroe showed up again and again. I didn't know that name, but I had a feeling I was about to. Then, on the desk, I found a birthday card, handmade, crayon drawings and a childish scrawl. Happy birthday, Daddy. Love you always, Noah. The envelope was dated just 3 months ago. 3 months. While I was baking Marcus's favorite lemon cake, while I was planning our trip to Maine. He had been celebrating with them. With them. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, surrounded by the pieces of a life I'd never been part of. The man I loved, the man I trusted, had kept something enormous from me. Not just a child, not just another woman, an entire life. And somehow, it had all been hidden just 20 feet from our kitchen, right behind that garage door. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept seeing the boy's face in my mind, his eyes so familiar, his smile, the same crooked one Marcus had when he was trying not to laugh. The garage was still open, and part of me wanted to go back out there. Maybe if I looked through everything again, it would make more sense. Maybe it would become less real. But it didn't. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table with the photo in my hand, the one of Marcus holding the boy. Noah, it said on the back. My fingers traced the name again and again. I needed answers. And not the kind you get from papers or receipts. I went back into the garage. I searched for anything that could tell me where to find this Noah. That's when I saw a birthday card with a return address. The handwriting was a child's. To Daddy, from Noah. The envelope was stamped from a town just 2 hours away. I don't know what came over me. I packed a bag, got in the car, and drove. I didn't even tell Julia or Vanessa. I didn't want to answer questions I couldn't explain myself. The town was small, quiet. Trees lined the streets, and kids rode their bikes without a care. My GPS led me to a cozy blue house with a white fence. For a few minutes, I just sat in the car and stared. I had no plan. What was I going to do? Knock on the door and say, "Hi, I'm the wife of the man your son secretly belonged to?" But then I saw him. The boy. Noah. He ran out of the house chasing a soccer ball, laughing, calling for someone named Mom. And in that moment, I didn't need a DNA test. I knew. The shape of his face, the tilt of his head, it was Marcus all over again. And behind him came the woman from the photo, Isla. She picked up the ball and tossed it to him gently, her smile warm and patient. They looked like a real family, happy, normal. And I felt like a ghost watching from the outside. I couldn't stop staring. A million thoughts ran through my mind. How long had this been going on? Had he been with her before me? During? Did he love them more? I wanted to storm out of the car and demand answers, but I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I drove around the block, parked by the corner, and waited until the sun started to go down. At one point, Isla came out to check the mailbox. I saw her glance at a photo stuck to the fridge through the window. Marcus and Noah laughing together, it crushed me. Back home, I sat in the dark. I didn't even take off my shoes. I couldn't tell anyone, not yet. Julia would explode, and Vanessa, well, she had her own way of twisting pain into gossip. I pulled out the birthday card again. Noah had drawn a big sun in the corner and written, "You're the best dad in the world." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to hate this woman, this child. But I couldn't. Noah was innocent, just a boy. He didn't choose any of this. And Isla. She didn't look like someone who wrecked homes. She looked tired, like someone who had been keeping a secret just as long as I had been living in a lie. The next morning, I made myself a promise. I would find out how long this had been going on. I would look through every file in that garage, every receipt, every envelope. I would learn the truth, not because I wanted revenge, but because I deserved to know what my life really was, what Marcus really was, and most of all, who Noah was to me now. Because something in my chest already knew. That boy was part of my story now, whether I liked it or not. The funeral was a blur. I don't remember what the priest said. I don't remember the songs. I stood beside Marcus's framed photo in a black dress that felt too tight, shaking hands, accepting hugs, hearing the same words over and over. He was such a good man. You two had something special. He loved you deeply. And I smiled. I nodded. But inside, I was screaming, because every kind word felt like a lie. Every tear shed for him clashed with the truth I was now carrying like a second skin. Marcus had a child, a whole other life. And none of these people knew. Or so I thought, until I saw her. She stood in the back, near the double doors of the chapel. She wore a navy coat, hair pulled back simply. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She was staring at me, not with hatred, not with pity, but with something else. Regret, guilt, familiarity. It was Isla. She didn't come up, didn't say a word. She stayed at the back, watching as if she didn't belong. And next to her, holding her hand, was Noah. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen, watching Marcus's other son, the one no one else knew about, stand at his father's funeral like a shadow, hidden behind the respectable faces. No one noticed, or pretended not to. Julia appeared at my side, her grip firm on my arm. "You okay?" I swallowed hard. Do you see them? In the back? She turned. Who? The woman in the blue coat. And the boy. She scanned the room, then narrowed her eyes. You know them? I nodded slowly. That's Isla, the woman Marcus was with. And Noah. That's his son. Julia blinked. She didn't say anything for a moment, just took my hand and squeezed it. We need to talk. Later. After the service, there was a quiet gathering at the house. Neighbors brought casseroles. Someone brought flowers. A cousin I hadn't seen in years made an awkward toast. It all felt distant, muffled, like I was watching my own life from behind glass. I kept glancing toward the front window, hoping to see Isla again. But she was gone. Julia cornered me in the kitchen. Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. I pulled her into the laundry room. The one place people wouldn't bother us. I found photos, I whispered. In the garage, pictures of Marcus with Isla, with Noah, baby photos, school plays, birthday cards, receipts. The whole life. Hidden in that locked garage, like it was his secret museum. Julia looked like she'd been slapped. My God. And then yesterday, I continued, I went to the address on one of the cards. I saw them. I saw the boy. He's Marcus's. There's no question. Julia paced. And she showed up here? To the funeral? She didn't speak to anyone. She stood in the back, left quietly. Julia shook her head. I want to wring his neck, and he's already in the ground. A sudden knock at the front door made us both jump. I peeked out. It was Caleb Foster, Marcus's longtime friend and lawyer. He looked somber, holding a leather briefcase. He gave me a tight smile. Eleanor, can we speak privately? Julia stayed close as I led him to Marcus's study. I'm sorry to come so soon, Caleb said, sitting down, but I need to discuss something with you. I nodded. Go ahead. There's been a recent update to Marcus's will. About 3 months ago, he added a secondary beneficiary and some unusual financial instructions. I felt the floor shift under me. Secondary beneficiary? Caleb hesitated. A minor named Noah Monroe. I didn't respond. Marcus set up a trust in the boy's name, Caleb continued, and arranged for automatic payments to a guardian, a woman named Isla Monroe. I stared at him. So it was real, all of it. Caleb looked up at me gently. Did you know about them? I nodded once, slowly. Now I do. And with that, the man I thought I'd buried was truly gone, because the Marcus they spoke of in the church never really existed. I thought the worst of it was over. I thought finding out about Isla and Noah was the deepest cut I'd have to endure. But betrayal, I've come to learn, doesn't come all at once. It arrives in waves. And just when you think you're standing, another one knocks you down harder than the last. It was 3 days after the funeral when Vanessa came over. My younger sister, stylish, loud, and always a little too dramatic, had been acting off since the day Marcus passed. I figured she was grieving in her own way. But that morning she showed up without warning, eyes red and arms crossed tightly over her stomach. I need to talk to you, she said, stepping inside without waiting for me to invite her in. Okay, I said slowly, shutting the door. You look pale. Are you sick? She sat down on the couch, fingers trembling. No, I'm pregnant. The words hit me like a slap. I blinked. You're... what? She nodded, lips pressed tight. 8 weeks. I found out 2 weeks before Marcus died. I didn't understand. Vanessa, why are you telling me this now? She looked away. Something about her silence made my skin crawl. Then she whispered, It's his. My breath caught in my throat. Whose? She looked up at me, tears falling now. Marcus's. It felt like the air had been sucked from the room. I stood there frozen, the words not sinking in fast enough. You're telling me you were sleeping with my husband? She nodded slowly. It only happened once. Last summer. We were both drunk. It was a mistake. A mistake? My voice cracked. You slept with my husband and got pregnant, and now you show up here in my house asking for sympathy? I didn't know I was pregnant until recently, she said quickly. I was going to tell you, I just didn't know how. I turned away from her. I couldn't look at her. My own sister. The woman who stood next to me on my wedding day. She'd done this. Does anyone else know? I asked quietly. She shook her head. No, just you. Of course, because this wasn't about the baby. This was about control. Vanessa had always wanted the spotlight, and now she had it in the ugliest way possible. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. You need to leave. Ellie, no. My voice was cold. Get out, now. Vanessa stood, crying harder. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. You chose to. She backed away, and I watched her walk out without another word. As soon as the door shut behind her, I collapsed. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was rage, humiliation, confusion. Had Marcus loved her? Was she just another mistake like Isla? Or was this something worse? Something calculated? Julia came over that evening. I told her everything. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "She's lying." I looked up. What? She's always been jealous of you. She's always wanted what you had. I wouldn't trust a word out of her mouth until you have proof. But she's pregnant. So? That doesn't make it Marcus's. Julia had a point. Vanessa's timing was too convenient, and if she was lying, it was cruel beyond belief. I needed answers, and I knew where to start. Back in the garage, I found a locked box Marcus had kept in the bottom drawer. The key was taped under the desk. Inside were documents, bank statements, letters, photographs, and something else, a flash drive. I stared at it for a long time before plugging it into my laptop. A folder popped up with one word, confidential. I opened it and found encrypted files, password protected, dozens of them. This wasn't about a child anymore. Marcus had been hiding much more than just affairs. This was something bigger. But the question that haunted me most was no longer, who was Marcus Hayes? It was, how many lives had he destroyed to keep his secrets safe? And was mine just the next in line? I spent the next 2 days buried in the garage, poring over everything Marcus left behind. The flash drive with encrypted files still sat unopened on my desk. Like a sleeping beast, I wasn't ready to wake. But even without cracking it, what I'd already found was enough to make my skin crawl. Inside a weathered manila folder, tucked behind old architectural sketches, I found printed emails between Marcus and a foreign financial advisor. They weren't about normal investments. These were wire transfers, large ones, sent monthly to an account in the Cayman Islands. The recipient? A name I didn't recognize. Silver Hill Holdings. I wasn't an expert in offshore banking, but I knew enough to realize Marcus wasn't just hiding another family. He was hiding money. Serious money. And not just for Isla and Noah. There were transfers to other names. Men I'd never heard of. A Mr. Sato. A Kay Klein. There were property deeds from overseas. Greece, Belize, even Nigeria. Marcus had been playing a high-stakes game, and I was starting to think Isla didn't even know half of it. That evening, I was sorting through a pile of receipts when the doorbell rang. I assumed it was Julia. She was the only one who came around without calling anymore. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Noah. He stood there alone. Hoodie too big, backpack slung over his shoulder, bottom lip trembling. My heart stopped. Before I could say anything, he whispered, "My mom's gone." "What do you mean?" I asked, stepping onto the porch. "She dropped me off at school yesterday," he said, voice shaking. "She didn't pick me up. I stayed at a friend's house last night, but I think something happened." I brought him inside immediately. He sat at the kitchen table, eyes wide and scared. I made him hot chocolate and wrapped him in a blanket while I called the local police department in his town. They confirmed Isla hadn't been reported missing yet, but they agreed to open a wellness check after I gave them her name and address. I hung up, stunned. What was happening? Had she run away? Or had someone made her disappear? Noah stared at me as I paced. "Do you know who my dad was?" he asked suddenly. I stopped. My throat tightened. "Yes, I do." "Did you hate him?" I sat down beside him. "No, sweetheart, I didn't hate him, but I didn't really know him either." He nodded slowly. "He used to call me on Tuesdays. He'd tell me stories about the buildings he was designing." That broke me. He'd never missed a Tuesday with this boy, while I spent years wondering why he worked late. "I think something's wrong," Noah said softly. I believed him. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I felt responsible for him now. I called Julia and told her everything. She arrived within the hour, furious and ready to drive back to Isla's town herself. But I convinced her to wait, at least until the police responded. Meanwhile, I called Caleb, the lawyer. When I explained that Noah was with me and Isla was missing, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm coming over," he said. "Now." He arrived with a folder under his arm and a pale look on his face. "There's something you need to know," Caleb said as we sat down. "Marcus wasn't just funneling money offshore, he was being watched." "By who?" "Federal authorities," he replied. "He was part of an ongoing investigation. Land development fraud, tax evasion, possibly more. They've been watching his financial activity for over a year." I blinked. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" "I only found out myself this week. The case was sealed." Julia leaned forward. "You think Isla was caught up in this?" "I don't know," Caleb said. "But if she's missing, someone else might be cleaning up Marcus's mess." The words chilled me. I looked at Noah, fast asleep now, curled up on the couch, and felt a new emotion rise in my chest. Not anger, not grief, but fear. Marcus hadn't just left behind broken hearts. He'd left behind danger, and we were still standing in it. The flash drive had been sitting on my desk for days. Every time I looked at it, I felt like it was staring back at me, daring me to open it. Caleb warned me it might contain sensitive information, maybe even evidence that could bring federal agents to my doorstep. But Isla was missing. Noah was scared and clinging to me like I was the last safe place on Earth. And I couldn't ignore the feeling that this drive held answers we desperately needed. So, while Noah napped in the guest room and Julia made a fresh pot of coffee downstairs, I locked myself in the study, took a deep breath, and opened the folder labeled Confidential. There was a single video file inside. I clicked it. The screen flickered, and then there he was. Marcus. He was sitting in this very room, in his office chair, wearing the gray sweater he used to wear on cold nights. He looked tired, eyes shadowed, hair a little messy, like he hadn't slept well in weeks. He sighed before speaking. "If you're watching this, Ellie, then I'm gone." I froze. "I know there's no easy way to say what I need to say," he continued. "But I couldn't let you go on thinking you knew the full truth. You deserve more than that, even if I've already destroyed everything." My chest tightened. I leaned closer. "I lied to you. Not just about Isla and Noah, though that's bad enough. I know that. I never meant to hurt you, Ellie. But I also never stopped what I was doing, even when I had the chance. I kept everything going. The money, the properties, the secrets. And by the time I thought about stopping, I was too deep in." He rubbed his face. "I was being watched, investigated. I had ties to people who don't forgive debts or broken promises. I did what I could to protect Isla and the boy. I left them money, set up accounts, created a cover story." He paused again, eyes flickering toward something off camera. He looked scared. "But the real reason I'm recording this is Vanessa." My heart stopped. He leaned forward. "Your sister is not who you think she is. I don't know how long she's been working angles behind our backs. At first I thought she just wanted money, but she was always around, listening, asking questions. She found out about Isla long before you did. I think she used it against her." My stomach twisted. I don't have proof, but I believe Vanessa had something to do with Isla's disappearance. They fought a few weeks before I died. It wasn't physical, but Isla called me crying, saying Vanessa threatened her. The next day, Isla cut off contact with me entirely. I haven't heard from her since. My hands were trembling. I know this is a lot. I know you probably hate me. But I couldn't leave this world without warning you. Be careful, Ellie. Protect yourself. Protect Noah. He looked into the camera one last time. I never stopped loving you. Not really. But love doesn't excuse betrayal. I'm sorry. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, frozen. The room felt colder, smaller. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. Vanessa? Could she really? My sister had always been selfish, yes, but dangerous? I thought back to her tears, her sudden pregnancy announcement, the way she stormed out when I didn't react how she expected. She hadn't called since, hadn't checked in once. I rushed downstairs to Julia, still holding the flash drive. We need to find Isla, I said. Now? We called the police department again. No updates. I gave them the new information from Marcus's video, but there wasn't much they could act on without evidence. I looked at Noah, quietly coloring at the kitchen table. His tiny shoulders hunched, his eyes darting toward me like he was afraid I'd disappear too. I knew I had to keep him safe, no matter what. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, going over every conversation I'd ever had with Vanessa. Every sly smile, every too long silence. I didn't want to believe it. But something inside me, deep and cold, already knew. This wasn't over, and Marcus's secrets were still far from finished unraveling. I waited a week before calling Vanessa. Not because I wasn't furious, I was. I was burning inside. But anger wasn't what I wanted to lead with. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. She agreed to meet at a quiet cafe outside town. Neutral ground. I arrived first and sat by the window, my heart pounding like a drum. When she finally walked in, she looked calm. Too calm. Like she didn't carry a single ounce of guilt. Ellie, she said, sliding into the seat across from me like nothing was wrong. Thanks for meeting me. I stared at her. Isla is missing. She blinked. Just once. What? Don't play dumb, I said, my voice low. You knew about her. You knew about Noah. Marcus told me everything. In a video he recorded before he died. Vanessa's smile faltered, just slightly. I didn't know she was missing. But you knew she existed, I pressed. And you threatened her. You told her to stay away. What did you say to her, Vanessa? She leaned back, folding her arms. I told her to be careful. That's all. She was going to ruin everything. Your life. His legacy. I was protecting you. My eyes narrowed. By threatening her? Vanessa shrugged. I told her people wouldn't accept her. That she and her son didn't belong. That you would never forgive Marcus if you found out. I might have pushed hard, but I didn't hurt her. My stomach turned. You told me you were pregnant with Marcus's child. That was a lie, wasn't it? Her face hardened. You never deserved him. The words hit like a slap. All these years, she'd been hiding jealousy behind fake smiles, hiding bitterness behind sisterly concern, and I'd been too blind to see it. You know what's sad, Vanessa? I said quietly. You didn't just lose a sister today. You lost any piece of family you had left. I stood up. She didn't stop me. Outside, the air felt sharper. I walked to my car with a strange weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't going to the police, not because she didn't deserve it, but because I was done. Done being pulled into other people's games. Done with Marcus's mess. Done letting betrayal define me. The next morning, I met with Caleb one last time. He'd gotten a call from Child Protective Services. Isla had been found. Alive. Shaken, but alive. She had been hiding at a friend's house out of state. Vanessa's threats, combined with the fear of being blamed for Marcus's shady business dealings, had pushed her into running. She didn't know who she could trust until she saw Noah was with me. "I want to see him," she told Caleb, "but only if Eleanor agrees." And I did. When we reunited them, it was quiet, emotional. Noah ran to her, tears streaming down his face. Isla thanked me again and again, but I stopped her. "You don't owe me anything," I said. "Just give him the love Marcus couldn't." She nodded. Then she asked me something unexpected. "Would you be okay staying in his life? Just a little?" I thought about it. About the boy who had shown up on my doorstep with nothing but a backpack and fear in his eyes, and about the woman who had been left behind just like me, lied to, discarded. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." A few weeks later, I packed up the house. I left the garage untouched. I didn't need to dig any deeper. I'd found all I needed to find. I moved to Colorado. Small town, quiet. I bought a modest cabin near the mountains with money Marcus had secretly put aside in a trust, money he had intended for me to find when the time was right. Julia helped me move. She cried harder than I did. "You deserve peace," she said. "Go find it." And I have. My mornings are slow now. I drink tea on the porch. I hike. I read. Sometimes Noah writes me letters, and I send him books. Isla calls every now and then to update me on how he's doing in school. I'm healing, not perfectly, but fully. Marcus may have left behind lies, betrayal, and pain, but I chose not to carry all of it with me. I didn't choose revenge. I chose peace.